Miss Trunchbull, you mean she's your aunt? She brought you up? Yes, Miss Honey said quietly. Well, no wonder you were terrified. The other day we saw her grab a girl by the pigtails and throw her over the playground fence. You haven't seen anything, Miss Honey said. After my father died when I was 5 and a half, she used to make me bathe all by myself in the dark. And if she came up and thought I hadn't washed properly, she'd push my head under the water and hold it there. But don't get me started on what she used to do. That won't help us at all. No, it won't. Well, what we came here for was to talk about you, and I've been talking about nothing but myself the whole time. I feel like a fool. I'm much more interested in just how much you can do with those amazing eyes of yours. I can move things. I know I can. I can push things over. How would you like it if we made some very cautious experiments that you see just how much you can move and push? Quite surprisingly, Matilda said, if you don't mind, Miss Honey, I think I'd actually rather not. I want to go home now and think about all the things that I've heard this afternoon. Of course, Miss Honey said, standing up at once. I've kept you here far too long. Your mother will be starting to worry. Oh, she never does that, Matilda said, smiling. But I'd like to go home anyway now, please, if you don't mind. Come along, then, Miss Honey said. I'm so sorry I gave you such a rotten tea. You didn't at all. I loved it. The two of them walked all the way to Matilda's house in complete silence. Miss Honey sensed that Matilda wanted it that way. The child seemed so lost that she thought she hardly looked where she was walking, and when they reached the gate of Matilda's home, Miss Honey said, You better forget everything I told you this afternoon. I won't promise to do that, Matilda said, but I promise not to talk about it to anyone anymore, not even to you. I think that'd be wise. I won't promise to stop thinking about it, though. I've been thinking about it all the way back from your cottage, and I believe I've just got a tiny little bit of an idea. Please forget it. I'd like to ask you at least 3 things before I stop talking about it. Please will you answer them, Miss Honey? Miss Honey smiled. It was extraordinary, she told herself, how this little snippet of a girl would seem suddenly to be taking charge of all her problems. And with such authority, too. Well, that depends on what questions are. First thing is, what did Miss Trunchbull call your father when you were around the house at home? I'm sure she called him Magnus. That was his first name. And what did your father call Miss Trunchbull? Her name's Agatha. That's what he would have called her. Lastly, what did your father and Miss Trunchbull call you around the house? Oh, they called me Jenny. Matilda pondered these answers very carefully. Let me make sure I've got them right. In the house at home, your father was Magnus, Miss Trunchbull was Agatha, and you were Jenny. Am I right? That is correct, Miss Honey said. Thank you, and now I won't mention this subject anymore. Miss Honey wondered what on earth was going into the mind of the child. Don't do anything silly, she said. Matilda laughed and turned away and ran up the path to the front door. Goodbye, Miss Honey, and thank you so much for the tea. Matilda found the house empty as usual. Her father was not yet back from work, her mother was not yet back from bingo, and her brother could be anywhere. She went straight to the living room and opened a drawer of the sideboard where she knew her father kept a box of cigars. She took one out and carried it up to her bedroom and shut herself in. Now for the practice, she told herself. It's gonna be tough, but I'm determined to do it. Her plan for helping Miss Honey was beginning to form beautifully in her mind. She had it now in almost every detail, but in the end it all depended on her being able to do one very special thing with her eye power. She knew she wouldn't manage it right away, but she felt fairly confident that with a great deal of practice and effort, she would succeed in the end. The cigar was essential. It was perhaps a bit thicker than she would have liked, but the weight was just about right. It would be fine for practicing with. There was a small dressing table in Matilda's bedroom with her hairbrush and comb on it, and 2 library books. She cleared these things to one side and laid the cigar down in the middle of the dressing table. Then she walked away and sat on the end of her bed. She was now about 10 feet from the cigar. She settled herself and began to concentrate, and very quickly this time she felt the electricity beginning to flow inside her head, gathering itself behind eyes. And the eyes became hot, and millions of tiny invisible hands became hot and began pushing out like sparks toward the cigar. Move, she whispered. and her intense surprise, almost at once, the cigar, with this little red and gold paper band around its middle, rolled away across the top of the dressing table. Matilda had enjoyed that. It was lovely doing it, and it felt as though sparks were going round and round inside her head and flashing out of her eyes. It had given her a sense of power that was almost ethereal. And how quick it had been this time. How simple. She crossed the bedroom and picked up the cigar and put it back on the table. Now for the difficult one. But if I have the power to push, then surely I also have the power to lift. It's vital I learn how to lift it. She sat at the edge of the bed again. It was now easy to summon the power behind her eyes. It was like pushing a trigger in the brain. Lift, 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 she whispered. At first the cigar started to roll away again, but then with Matilda concentrating fiercely, one end of it slowly lifted up about an inch off the tabletop. With a colossal effort, she managed to hold it there for about 10 seconds. Then it fell back again. Phew, she gasped. I'm getting it. I'm starting to do it. For the next hour, Matilda kept practicing, and in the end she had managed by the sheer power of her eyes to lift the whole cigar off the table about 6 inches into the air and hold it about for a minute. Then suddenly she was so exhausted she fell back onto the bed and went to sleep. That was exactly how her mother found her later in the evening. "Well, what's the matter with you? Are you ill?" "Oh gosh," Matilda said, waking up, sitting up and looking around. No, I'm all right. I was a bit tired, that's all." From then on, every day after school, Matilda shut herself in her room and practiced with the cigar. And soon it all became to come together in the most wonderful way. 6 days later, by the following Wednesday evening, she was able not only to lift the cigar up into the air, but also to move it around exactly as she wished. It was beautiful. "I can do it," she cried. "I really can do it. I can pick up the cigar just with my eye power and push it and pull it in the air any way I want." All she had to do now was put her great plan into action.